And so Elon endorsed me recently, the other day, actually. He's great. Elon Musk. He's a brilliant guy. Every time I call him, he's talking about, I got a new idea for a rocket. You have to hear this? No, it's true. The first time I ever saw this, I'm watching television like 3 years ago, and I see a rocket engine, motor engine, come down landing, straight up in, no wings, no nothing, and it's landing. I thought I was seeing things. What is that? And it's landing on a barge in the middle of the ocean. And then another one comes down, and another one, I guess 4 of them came down, 3 or 4, and they land upright. I said, what the hell was that? I've never seen that before. Now, if that were government, you wouldn't see that for another 50 to 100 years. But it was Elon.
Get ready for some jaw-dropping news. Elon Musk has just thrown the political world into a frenzy by pledging a whopping $45 million per month to a super PAC supporting Donald Trump's 2024 campaign.
Part of me suspects that he's feeling a little bit the Tesla rally here. The stock is up a ton, and I think he's feeling a little flush.
It does seem like there's a chance that Tesla will trade like a Trump meme stock. In making this donation to Trump and becoming a big Trump supporter, as Trump does well, it creates a little bit of momentum behind Tesla that he can then use to donate to the former president.
And a lot has happened in the past 4 years. I mean, he moved from California to Texas. He's now trying to sell the Cybertruck to red state voters. He has made his political views abundantly clear over and over again in kind of increasingly inflammatory tweets on X. I think it's just a question of what is the ask? What else does he want from a Trump administration? Is it lower interest rates? Is it tariffs on China? Is it border security?
How about a return to X? And how about he says, Mr. President, can you please start eexing again on my platform?
Talk about making waves. Now, this comes right after Musk publicly endorsed Trump following a dramatic assassination attempt on the former president.
The money is pouring in for the Trump-Vance ticket. One of the main sources is Silicon Valley billionaires, including Elon Musk, who just pledged to donate $45 million a month to a new pro-Trump super PAC called America PAC. Here's one reaction, someone on Twitter, on X, saying, oh my God, Elon Musk is going to help Trump save America. Elon Musk is donating around $45 million to a pro-Trump super PAC. Do you hear me? Not $45, not $4,500, not $45,000, but $45 million American dollars. Thank you, Elon Musk. Let's show this man some love. Pass this great news around.
The super PAC was created by movers and shakers of the tech world. The Washington Post reported former tech tycoon and now crypto dudes, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, reportedly gave $500,000. The total raised so far is more than a whopping $8.5 million, and it's just been reported that tech titan Andreessen Horowitz told staff they are donating to Trump. Back in the day when Facebook and Google were just getting started, Silicon Valley masters were perceived to support left-aligned causes. Tech journalist Jessica Lessin had this to say. Silicon Valley has long been perceived as one of the most liberal, left-leaning places in the world. And now key Valley figures have boosted Vance into a Republican VP candidate and will play a very big role in trying to get Trump reelected. I think the lesson here is that tech wealth and power can be leveraged very effectively, but also that the tech left is going to have a lot of soul searching and rebuilding to do. So, Robbie, what's going on? Why is there this sharp right turn from the tech bros?
So we should keep in mind here that J.D. Vance, who has been picked as Trump's vice president, has some close ties to Andreessen Horowitz, to Peter Thiel, who is the billionaire co-investor in Facebook, came to attention that way. Also PayPal. Peter Thiel came out as a supporter of Donald Trump in 2016. He spoke at the RNC. It's notable because he's a gay man, and he spoke about feeling accepted in Trump's version of the Republican Party. In 2020, he did not contribute. He said he thought the race was not winnable for Trump. And now he is funded, so he supported J.D. Vance for office. He also supported Blake Masters, who's the Arizona Senate candidate in 2022 who did not win. I wonder if the Vance pick is primarily designed, or partly designed at least, to bring Peter Thiel back into the fold. It is true that Vance, because of his background in the tech venture capitalist sector, is well liked by a lot of these tech figures, even though at the same time he's very much ideologically has taken a kind of, not an anti-tech, but an anti-big tech. He's called for breaking up tech companies. He supports the work that he's praised Lena Khan, who's the Biden administration FTC leader, who has brought action against countless big tech companies, is a kind of a crusading anti-big tech person. So that's a very interesting turn of events. Elon has been coming around to the right, over the course of time. He started by he was supporting Ron DeSantis. Remember, DeSantis announced on Twitter that he was doing his campaign. Elon said he would not support Trump, but that he was supporting DeSantis. So now there's no DeSantis option. He has come into the fold. You've seen a lot of very wealthy people who I think find Trump distasteful for personal reasons, or at least did in the past, because of January 6th, because of the things he said about shithole countries and immigrants. They found that rhetoric very off-putting, but at the end of the day, they think their economic conditions, the regulation, the state of the economy will be better under Republican leadership. So they're finding ways to overcome any dislike they had of Donald Trump and hope to make a lot of money.
I think the tech bros like JD Vance because they like the idea of deregulation. I think specifically the tech bros in San Francisco and Silicon Valley are upset with the fact that they have to look at the homeless people that they created. Kate Willett put it really well on Twitter. She wrote, JD Vance and his Teal sponsorship is the most prominent example of one of my standing theories. An underrated contributor to U.S. fascism is literally San Francisco tech guys and their long-standing resentment about having to look at the people they made homeless. I went to San Francisco recently. There's over 8,000 people experiencing homelessness in the city. There's an absurd amount of money in Silicon Valley, and the city is not seeing any of it. The city is in shambles. And so the idea that they can come in and they can make this their tech hub and they can raise rent costs so that the median, not the average, the median rent is $3,375. You cannot afford to live in that city on minimum wage. And that's not pulled up by outliers. This is the median rent cost. That's insane. And so I think the reality that these guys have relied on the deregulation of the financial industry at the hand of Republicans in order to get funding for their startups, which most of the time are vanity projects, is ridiculous. That's why we saw the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. I think they're in bed with the right now because they know that that's the only hope that they can make a living by securing that funding, paying themselves a hefty salary, and having their startup fail in 5 years.
I disagree with a lot of that. San Francisco, I just looked it up, has spent $1.1 billion fixing the homelessness crisis in just the fiscal year 2021 to 2022. They spent about $3 billion in the years prior. If money was going to fix homelessness, there would not. If it was just a question of money, it would be fixed. It's not just a question of money because the homeless in San Francisco, in addition to just being poor, are dealing with profound mental health issues and drug addiction. And so if you throw money at them and say, here's a place you can stay, here's treatment you can get, here's all of these things you can do, it doesn't work because they're ill and addicted and they don't stay in the housing, they ruin the housing, they have to be on the street to be near to their drug dealers. So you can't fix the problem until you have a more, a stronger desire to actually, you don't have to incarcerate them, but you have to actually forcibly treat them or keep them in mental health institutions. So the money is just being spent on housing is not working.
But Robbie, if they can't afford rent, if they can't afford a house on their own, and they're put in some of the temporary housing that was created with that $1.8 billion investment, they're still experiencing homelessness. They still don't have a place to live permanently. So of that 8,000 figure, 2,000 are living on the streets. So the money's going somewhere, but if they can't afford the median rent, because wages aren't enough to afford rent, they're still homeless.
I'm saying with the money that the city government is spending on the homelessness, they could pay for every single homeless person to live in an apartment. It wouldn't work because the homeless would not stay there. They're choosing to be on the street because they're drug addicted and mentally ill. And until they're treated for that, and it's a difficult thing to treat. If it was easy to treat, we wouldn't have homeless anymore.
Yeah, why do you think they're making the decision to choose to be on the street?
Because they're addicted to drugs, and the street is where you buy drugs.
And you've talked to all 2,000 people living on the streets of San Francisco?
No, we've had guests on in the I don't know anything about this, but we've had guests on in the past who have explained that this is the root of the problem of hopelessness. I mean, I can see it in the streets of D.C. The homeless people on the streets of D.C. It's not just that they're poor, it's that they're drug addicted and mentally ill. That's why they scream obscenities at you and occasionally engage in violence. And it's very sad. I want it fixed, but it doesn't. The lack of housing is not a problem. I lived in a building in D.C. where they provided heavily subsidized or free housing to homeless people. What happens time and time again is they wreck the housing and move back onto the street so they can engage in the kind of extreme drug and mental illness behavior that is sad and needs to be fixed. And we're already spending money. We might as well spend this money fixing the actual problem. The housing first strategy, I'm convinced, doesn't work.
Of course, there's a lot of hysteria and misinformation around homelessness. The reality is that when the median rent is $3,375 and the minimum wage federally in the United States of America is $7.25. And there are people working for tips, working as waiters. They can't even afford that, even if they're being paid the federal minimum and not the California minimum wage. If they're being paid $15 to $20, they still can't afford rent. You don't have to be mentally ill to understand the math isn't mathing.
Well, the rent is unaffordable because there's too much restriction on building more houses. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I would presume you wouldn't want more houses built, and that could bring down the cost.
If there's more houses built,
there's extreme restriction, particularly in California. It's like the worst state for this in the nation, on where and in what circumstances more housing can be built. And that's what drives up rent.
The issue is not that there's not enough units in San Francisco. The issue is that the pricing of the units is too high.
Well, that's because there's too few units.
It doesn't matter if you build more units. This is not a supply and demand issue.
It's absolutely a supply and
demand issue.
There
are vacant units, thousands of them in San Francisco right now. The issue is that the market isn't caring that the price should be lowered in order to have more renters. They don't care about that. They would rather get the tax deduction by having those units be vacant. And so the issue is that you have a lot of people living in
too. We can get rid of
who
that.
are very high salaried people. They are tech bros working for these kinds of startups where someone gets a chunk of money from a bank like Silicon Valley Bank that's circumventing financial regulations from Dodd-Frank. And so now you have these people who are making a high salary to essentially do nothing, to add no value to society. A lot of these startups fail. And so what you have happening is they're able to afford rent. They increase the rent costs in the city. The units are not any better. There's no fewer units available. But what you have is people willing and able to pay a higher price, so they raise the prices to get that cash transfer as landlords. And that's why the prices are high.
There's an artificial
now everyone living in San
supply.
Francisco can't afford that.
Yeah, the general unaffordability is tied to the incredible artificial constraint on the supply of housing in the state. That's not the homeless problem is a drug addiction problem that needs to be treated that way. But I think we're going to end up debating this many more times on the show to come.
But that's not all. Musk is also moving SpaceX's headquarters from California to Texas. Now, he's had it with California's new laws on gender identity disclosures in schools and is packing up to protect children. I'm sure Project 2025 and billions of dollars in cuts for the ultra-wealthy ain't got nothing to do with it, though. Am I right?
Mike, yes, Elon Musk announcing in a tweet here that he will be moving the SpaceX headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. He says this is in response to a law that Governor Gavin Newsom signed today, making rules that require parent notification if a child identifies as transgendered banned in schools in California. Jason Calacanis tweeted about it. Musk responded saying this is the final straw because of this law and many others that preceded it, attacking both families and companies. SpaceX will now move its HQ from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. We should note that SpaceX does already have operations in Texas, and it did reincorporate from Delaware to Texas earlier in the year. So the entire move in and of itself is not new, but the fact that they're relocating headquarters from California to Texas, he says, partially in response to this law and other issues he's had with the state, is notable. Back over to you.
Kate, thank you.
It looked like Musk is pulling out all the stops to shake things up both politically and geographically. Now, who would have thought that the tech billionaire and the former president would become such close allies? Literally everybody that knows how to follow a money trail, considering that this dude has never invented a thing in his life, always taking credit for other people's work. I'll let you figure out which of the two dudes I'm talking about.
You tweet a lot.
I use my tweets to express myself. Some people use their hair. I use Twitter.
You kind of have little wars with the press.
Twitter is a war zone. If somebody's going to jump in the war zone, it's like, okay, you're in the arena. Let's go. I don't know. Who's this sound like?
It sounds like a guy who lives at the White House.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, sure.
Do you see any similarities between you and him? Do you support him?
I think there are some things that I think there are some things that I think are not good, like support for oil and gas.
And his position on the environment, global warming?
We obviously do not agree on the environment.